Hi everyone, this is a remote viewing 5-year forecast for 3 new cryptocurrencies that we are calling SECO 18, 19, and 20. As usual, all are currently inexpensive, despite having different projections. We have done a great many studies on new cryptocurrencies that we hoped would survive and thrive into the future, and in general, we have found that most of them do not do well in terms of long-run adoption. We decided to look at 2 cryptocurrencies this month that have some stuff in common, but fundamentally, they perform differently over the 5-year duration of our forecast. SECO stands for Contemporary Investigations of Cryptocurrency Opportunities. Again, the purpose of the SECO forecast is to attempt to use remote viewing in the context of an economic forecast to determine the likelihood that a cryptocurrency will survive and thrive into the future. We are trying to focus on cryptocurrencies where their initial cost per coin is generally small and the potential for growth is quite significant. We offer our SECO forecasts free to the public to watch as videos on YouTube, but the real name of our currency in the forecast has been changed so that the name referenced in the video is fictional. Potential investors can watch the forecast to see if they want to purchase the actual identity of the currency during the forecast period. While we have begun our SECO forecast by publishing results for coins from which we received positive results, we now intend to publish a wider range of forecasts. We have moved on to something that is more like a subscription model, where those people who have purchased one of our SECO forecast identities also get the identities of all of our other SECO forecasts that are available and current through the end of this year, 2021. There is no extra cost for this. SECO forecasts typically are for 5 or more years. We occasionally update the forecasts, which usually extends the forecast further into the future. This allows us to share our results which are not that good, which theoretically allows people to dump currencies from their portfolios that look like they will not survive. But again, in our research, some currencies did come back with strong and positive results. Luckily for us, some of the currencies we explored this month and one currency we re-examined from before yielded positive results. For these SECO studies, we normally probe for adoption, and that is whether a significant number of people and institutions start to use the currency. The theory is that if the currency survives and people use the currency, then that would make it a good investment. So let me outline what we did with this study for SECO 18, 19, and 20. This experimental design has 2 parts for the target, which is what the viewers are supposed to perceive. The first is known now, and that is a base surface that has unique topographical elements. The second part of the target is made up of additional elements that are added to the target after the end of the forecast period using CGI software. We have a video on our website on the Farsight forecasting method that we use for this study, and that video describes how this all works. All of the viewers described the currently verifiable elements of the base surface for the target very well. We use multiple base targets, some of which were the surface of the moon, as well as an island in a tropical environment. Moreover, all of the viewers had similar or corresponding numbers of elements added to that base surface, and those results tell us how the currency will perform over the forecast period, according to the rules of our experimental design. Moreover, all of the viewers had similar or corresponding numbers of elements added to that base surface, and those results tell us how the currency will perform over the forecast period according to the rules of our experimental design. In our studies, there are a possibility of up to 11 elements that can be placed in a target using CGI software 5 years into the future, and our remote viewers are describing what the target looks like in 5 years, after it is assembled using CGI software. The rules of how these elements are employed in the target creation process exist now, and those rules are tied to how the currency performs during the forecast period. So when our viewers describe what the target looks like in the future, we know how the currency performs. Now, SECO 19 is actually a redo of a previous SECO. We felt that it would be better to obtain more data for this SECO since the fundamentals of this currency seem more positive than a great many other currencies. And indeed, our new results are indicating positive growth in terms of adoption for SECO 19. For SECO 19, our 4 viewers describe the future target as having 5, 5, 4, and another 4 additional elements out of a possible of 11 elements that were added to the base target. And as for SECO 20, our 4 viewers describe the future target as having 5, 5, 4, and 0 additional elements. Normally, targets which have 3 or 4 elements are good indicators of positive growth. Initially, we utilize an aggregate version of the temperature probe analysis for this SECO. Temperature probe analysis is normally used to obtain direction indicators for specific timelines, such as week to week or month to month or even year to year. This aggregation method helps us centralize the timeline measurements so that we have one measure for the entire forecast period, rather than week to week or year to year and so on. This tends to increase the accuracy of the temperature probe analysis, and it also allows us to obtain an independent measure for the aggregate SECO change. We can then compare this with the measure obtained using complexity analysis. For SECO 19, the aggregate temperature probe analysis helps us interpret the complexity analysis. More specifically, there are 32 measures for temperature that are mapped to changes in adoption for this currency. Of those 32 measures for temperature, 24 are positive and only 8 are negative. Weighing these measures by the actual perceived temperatures, then the numbers are 47 positive and 9 negative, which is a very strong positive result. For SECO 20, those numbers are 19 positive and just 13 negative. And if you weigh those measures by their actual perceived temperatures, then the numbers are 37 positive and 21 negative, which is a mildly positive result. Thus, the aggregate temperature probe analysis corresponds well enough with the complexity analysis to indicate that SECO 19 does find a significant user base with a rise in adoption over the next 5 years. SECO 20 also seems to have a positive result, but the results are not as strong as SECO 19. Unfortunately, these positive results do not extend to SECO 18. Negative indicators for SECO 18 seem to indicate that this SECO may not be widely adopted for the duration of the forecast. Now, for a numerical comparison with respect to our other SECO projects, if we average the number of elements perceived by each viewer and divide that by the total possible elements for a target, we get the proportion of total possible elements that a viewer perceives. Then we can average that proportion across all viewers to get an overall index for the currency that ranges from 0 to 1. An index number of 1 would mean that the viewer perceived every possible element that could be used in a forecast, and that would mean that that currency would be very, very popular and be adopted by an exceptionally large community. An index number of 0 would mean the opposite, which is that the viewer perceived no additional elements over and above the base surface, which would mean that the currency would be expected to perform quite badly in terms of adoption. For our SECO 1 currency, that number is 0.66. For our SECO 2 currency, that number is 0.725. For SECO 3, that number is 0.575. For SECO 4, 0.567. SECO 6 has 0.389. SECO 9, 0.472. SECO 11, that is 0.413. SECO 14, that is 0.35. For SECO 15, 0.444. SECO 16, 0.35. SECO 17, that is 0.392. SECO 19, that is 0.45. And finally, for SECO 20, that number is 0.35. We combine this with the positive indicators for aggregate temperature probe analysis, and these results indicate strong growth in adoption for SECO 19 and more modest positive growth for adoption in SECO 20 between now, October 2021, and 2026. So, our remote viewing results are quite positive for SECO 19 and modestly positive for SECO 20 in terms of adoption. This does not guarantee that these currencies will perform well over the next 5 years though. But given that we now have multiple remote viewing sessions done by very experienced remote viewers that indicate, with respect to SECO 19 in particular, this currency's future performance appears quite positive and quite strong. But remember, this is not day trading where you buy in the morning and sell in the afternoon. And the exact timing of the movement upward and downward needs to be known down to the hour or minute. Remind yourself that this is a long-term 5-year forecast. As mentioned before, SECO 18 in comparison did not yield strong indicators of overall positive growth in terms of adoption. The data for SECO 18 did seem to suggest a mild spike at the end of the forecast towards 2026, but too much negative action throughout the data leaves little energy to suggest a positive potential outlook in regards to SECO 18's level of adoption over the next 5 years. And remember our disclaimer, no one at Farsight is a licensed financial advisor. So anything that anyone at Farsight does that relates to using remote viewing to predict financial or economic outcomes of any type, including the performance, however defined, or selling price of a cryptocurrency, stock, commodity, or anything else, is done for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everyone doing investments are doing so at their own risk. These are experiments in remote viewing, and there are no guarantees or warranties being made either expressed or implied. Nonetheless, these efforts are truly interesting on a grand scale, and we at Farsight believe that after we do this for a while, it will be hard for anyone to ignore the reality of remote viewing. As we have said in the past, may you follow your own intuitions, make wise investment decisions, and become rich. Thank you for supporting our efforts at Farsight. Together, we will change the world for the better. I'm Aziz Brown from Farsight.